Up to this point, Celestial Being has looked almost unstoppable. Every intervention has ended the same way. The Gundams appear, overwhelm their opponents, and disappear before anyone can respond. It created the impression that Celestial Being was operating on a completely different level than the rest of the world. But Episode 9 changes that. For the first time, the Gundams are no longer controlling the battlefield. The world is adapting, and that's what makes this episode so important. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Glue and Regret, the channel where the Gunpla backlog grows faster than my free time. The episode opens with what looks like two lock-ons. At first, I thought, wait, does Lockon have a twin brother? We see a man who looks exactly like him visiting their parents' grave, while Lockon watches from a distance. Maybe we'll find out in a future episode, but it immediately got me curious. Why did the episode choose to emphasize this moment? What's interesting is that Lockon chooses to remain hidden. He doesn't reveal himself. He doesn't approach. He simply watches from afar. It's a small scene, but I think it tells us a lot about the sacrifices required to be a part of Celestial Being. The organization demands complete secrecy. Its members can't live normal lives. They have to leave behind family, relationships, and even their own identities. The world may see the Gundams as heroes, or the world may see them as terrorists, but moments like these reminds us that the Gundam Meisters are paying a personal price that most people never see. And honestly, I think that's what makes Lockon such an interesting character. And I think a lot of people can relate to that in real life. Behind the jokes, the confidence, the sniper rifle, there's clearly someone carrying a burden of his own. The world sees the Gundams. Nobody sees the sacrifices behind them. But sometimes life takes us down a path that creates distance between us and the people we care about. A job, a school, a move to another city, military service, working overseas, even just growing up. There are moments when you find yourself watching from a distance, wondering what could have been if things were different. And I think that's why this scene hits me. Because behind all the Gundams and politics is a very human moment. The world sees Lockon as a Gundam Meisters, but at that moment, he's the person that can't go home. Meanwhile, the episode continues building its supporting cast. There are three parts of it. So first, there's Louise is suddenly forced to leave Tokyo by her mother, leaving Saji powerless to stop it. Kino begins investigating Allelujah, which I butchered the name, Skenberg, and Celestial Being's true objective. Marina Ismail receives assistance from United Nations, but even this act of generosity feels suspicious. First, Louise is suddenly forced to leave Tokyo by her mother. And for the first time, we see Saji completely powerless. There's no Gundam, no military intervention, no grand political conflict. Just two young people whose lives are being shaped by the decision outside of their control. I think that's what makes this subplot feel so real. Sometimes life changes overnight, and loved ones get sick, someone loses their job, a family has to move, and suddenly the future you imagine disappears. Not because anybody wanted it to, but because life doesn't always ask for permission before it changes. Saji can't fight this situation. He can only watch it happen. Have this happened to you? Share the comments down below. Then we have Kino, who continues investigating Allelujah, Skenberg, and the Celestial Being. While everyone else is reacting to the Gundams, Kino is asking a different question. Why? Why does celestial being exist? What do they actually want? And honestly, I think she represents something important. When something powerful appears and starts changing the world, there will be always people trying to understand what's happening behind the curtain. Not because they're against it, not because they're trying to stop it, but because understanding the truth matters. Honestly, we see this in real life all the time. Whenever a major event happens, most people focus on what's happening in front of them. But there are always journalists, researchers, investigators asking a different question. Why is this happening? Who's behind it? What's the bigger picture? Because understanding the event is one thing, understanding the cause is something else entirely. And I think that's why Kinu's role is so important. While the world is so focused on Gundams, she's trying to understand the people behind them. Because sometimes the most important question isn't what happened, it's why did it happen in the first place? And then finally, we have Marina Ismail. She receives assistance from the United Nations, which should be a positive thing. But what I found interesting is that even an act of generosity feels suspicious. Nobody fully trusts anybody. Every country has its own interest. Every decision has political consequences, and that's what Gundam 00 does so well. Even when someone offers help, the question isn't, is this good? The question becomes, what do they want in return? And honestly, I think that's something many of us experience in real life too. Maybe not on a international level, but whenever trust is broken or uncertainty exists within you, people start questioning intentions. Someone offers a help, someone offers advice, someone offers an opportunity, and instead we simply accepting it and we wonder why. What's the catch? What do they want gain from this? Not because we're cynical, but because experience teaches us that very few things come out without conditions. And that's why Marina Ismail's situation feels so real. She's trying to help her people. The United Nations is offering assistance, yet neither side can completely trust the other. Because in politics, just like in life, sometimes the hardest thing isn't accepting help. It's believing that help comes without a hidden agenda. And when you look at all these subplot stories together, you start to notice a pattern. Louise doesn't know what her future looks like. Kinu is searching for the truth. Marina doesn't know who she can trust. And the world doesn't know what the celestial being really wants. Different people, different problems, but they're all dealing with the same thing. It's uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen next. And honestly, I think that's something all of us can relate to. When we don't have the answers, our minds start filling in the blanks. Sometimes we worry. Sometimes we assume the worst. Sometimes we're afraid of things that haven't even happened yet. And I think that's what this episode is really all about. Not just terrorism, not just politics, not even celestial being. It's about people trying to make sense of the world they don't fully understand. And honestly, sometimes the scariest thing isn't the answer. It's not knowing the answer. And if you're watching the video right now, is there something in your life that sometimes scares you because you don't know the answer? And if you feel like sharing, please comment right down below and we can discuss it together. And before we continue, if you've been enjoying these Gundam reviews, consider following or subscribing. We're building a small community here where we talk about Gunpla, Gundam, and the stories behind them. And maybe in the future I could add some anime as well. Plus, I personally give shoutouts on my social media to thank people who support the channel. Alright, back to the episode. Back aboard to Ptolemus. The episode gives us one of its most emotional moments. Feld reveals that both of her parents were second generation Gundam Meisters. They died serving celestial being. Because of the organization's secrecy, she knows almost nothing about how they died. I mean, think about that for a moment. Imagine losing your parents and never learning the full story. Never getting all the answers. Never getting the closure. And honestly, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling. Maybe not in the same way, but sometimes we lose people before we get the chance to ask the questions we wanted to ask. Sometimes there are conversations that never happen, stories that never told, questions that never get answered, and years later, we're still left wondering what really happened? What were they thinking? What would they have wanted me to know? That's what makes Feld's story so heartbreaking. She's not just grieving her parents. She's not grieving the answers she'll never get. And that's why Lockon opening up hits so hard, which connects to the opening of the episode. For a brief moment, two people carrying different stories discover they're carrying the same pain. And I think that's another thing Gundam 00 gets right. Sometimes people connect not because they lived the same life, but because they felt the same loss. And if you have a story that's kind of the same thing in this situation where both of you have a different experience but have the same feeling, comment right down below and share your story. I would love to read them. Finally, we arrive at what I think is the most important part of the episode. For the first time, celestial being isn't changing the world. The world is changing in response to them. The world stops reacting and starts adapting. So 4 months have now passed since the celestial being began its interventions in episode 1. The results are undeniable. Conflicts have decreased. Militaries are changing their strategies. For the first time, celestial being appears to be making a difference. But what I love about episode 9 is that it reminds us of something very important. People adapt. It doesn't matter how powerful an idea, technology, or organization is. Eventually, the world learns how to respond. And honestly, I think we see that in real life all the time. Whenever something changes the game, people don't just sit there and accept it. They learn, they adjust, they find new ways to compete. I mean, look around you. Think about smartphones, think about AI, think about social media. At first, they completely changed the world, but over time, people adapted. Business adopted, governments adopted, society adopted. That's exactly what's happening to celestial being. For 8 episodes, they've been the ones changing the rules. Episode 9 is the first time the world starts changing the rules back. I just wanted to emphasize more on Sergei specifically. What makes Sergei dangerous isn't the technology. It's his mindset. He doesn't assume he'll win because he's stronger. He wins because he's willing to learn and take the loss as experience. And honestly, that's true in real life too. The people who succeeded aren't always the smartest or the strongest. They're often the ones who adapt the fastest and willing to take chances. And for Christina's moment, one of the most memorable moments involves Christina freezing when danger suddenly appears. And honestly, I think that's one of the most realistic moments in the series. We all like to imagine we'd stay calm during a crisis, but the truth is, nobody really knows how they will react until they actually in it. I'm a nurse by trade, and I've experienced something similar firsthand when I was a new graduate nurse. I remember one of my first encounter with a wound vac. I didn't really know much about it at the time. I learned about the importance of it in school. I had seen it before as well, but actually being responsible for it was a completely different feeling. I remember feeling nervous. My mind was racing. I kept second guessing myself. Am I doing this right? What if something goes wrong? What if I miss something important? Looking back now, it seems like a small thing, but at that moment, it felt very real. I think that's what makes Christina's reaction so believable. We all think we'd stay calm when things get serious, but the truth is, nobody really knows how they will react until they're standing in that situation themselves. Whether it's a nurse handling a new procedure, a driver trying to avoid an accident, or a crew member watching an enemy ship charge directly toward them, it's easy to be brave in theory. It's much harder when reality suddenly shows up. Christina didn't freeze because she was weak. She froze because the situation became real. And honestly, I think that's one of the most human moments in the entire episode, because sometimes courage isn't about staying calm. Sometimes courage is being scared and moving forward anyway. For the first time in Gundam 00, Celestial Being isn't the hunter. They're the hunted. And that's what makes episode 9 so important. Not because the balance of power changed overnight, but because the world finally proved it could change too. Because no matter how powerful you are, eventually people adapt. And from this point, the rules have changed. Celestial Being is no longer fighting a world that's trying to understand them. They're fighting a world that's learned how to beat them. And I wanted to add as well that Sumeragi finally realized that Sergei is not there to defeat them, but rather capture a Gundam. And I think it's a very good additional to the episode, because it will transition to the episode 10, and I can't wait to see it as well. A brilliant episode. This proves that technology alone isn't enough. The world adapts, the stake rises, and for the first time, Celestial Being looks vulnerable. I rate this 8 out of 10. It was really a good episode. By the time of recording of this video, I just want to say thank you for the 35 subscribers. It may not sound like much, but to me, it's everything. A few weeks ago, glue and regret was just an idea. Now, there are 35 people who decided to stick around and listen to me talk about Gundam, Gunpla, stories, philosophies, and the occasional life lesson hidden inside these giant robots. Whether you've been here since the first video or just recently joined, I just want to say thank you. Every view, every like, every comment, and every subscription means more than you probably realize. We're still a very small community here, but that's what makes it special. Here's to more builds, more reviews, more discussions, and probably a larger backlog of model kits. Thank you for being part of the journey. Glue and regret, where every build has a story. Signing off.